When you think of the most influential moments in the 1960s, you often think of the moon landing. You often think one of the most influential people in the world was Neil Armstrong. But in 1967, in South Africa, there was a surgeon named Christiaan Barnard. Now, Christiaan Barnard in 1967 was practically a celebrity. And if it had not been for the moon landing, he probably would have been a household name by now. You see, Christiaan Barnard had performed the first ever heart transplant in history in 1967. He practically became the most famous doctor in the world over the span of a week. However, to give Christiaan all the credit for this outrageous work would be incorrect. In fact, the source for the heart transplant, the idea of it, came 10 years before 1967. And, by quite frankly, a mad Russian scientist named Vladimir P. Demikhov. Vladimir was born on July 18th of 1960 into a family of Russian peasants living on a small farmstead in the northern part of Russia's Volgograd region. Early as a child, he had been inspired by Ivan Pavlov. He was a Russian physiologist known primarily for his work in classical conditioning, but also his experimental work with dogs. Now, before we go any further in this video, I urge everyone to be careful of the images I'm going to show you. Some images will most certainly horrify you. I mean, truly, they are sad and scary. But back to our story. Now, Ivan, after the Russian Civil War, resumed his post in the Human Physiology Department at Moscow State University. Here he continued his experimental research. At the university, he actually performed successful heart and lung transplants, not on humans, but on warm-blooded animals, which was still in itself a tremendous task at the time. I mean, virtually transplants of any kind were unknown. Throughout the 1950s, Demikhov is still practicing his organ transplantation surgery. He's continuously improving experimental techniques. He's continuously improving the layout of his lab. And in 1951, he successfully performed a heart transplantation in a dog. And the survival rate of the dogs grew from just a few days to several weeks. But in February 1954, ignoring condemnation from certain critics, Demikhov performed his most bizarre experiment to date. He transplanted a dog's head to another dog. And he didn't only stop there. Of course, the first few attempts had failed and were not so widely publicized at the time. In fact, Demikhov and his associates set about performing the same surgery 23 times. Again, with a broad range of success rates. But in the 24th time, in 1959, Demikhov performed probably his most famous transplant. So famous, in fact, it had photos appearing in Life magazine. Here is the photo of the two-headed dog. From pictures, you can see two dogs connected to a singular body, both connected to the same heart. For the surgery, Demikhov chose two subjects. One, a large German shepherd that Demikhov named Brodyaga, which is Russian for tramp, and a smaller dog named Shavka. Brodyaga would be the host dog and Shavka would be the secondary head and neck of Demikhov's creation. What's astonishing though about this transplant at the time was that both dogs could hear, see, smell, and even swallow. Shavka, even though being the transplanted dog, could still swallow, could drink. However, she wasn't connected to Brodyaga's stomach. Hence, anything she drank simply followed an external tube and fell to the floor. Now, of course, this work was heavily criticized. After the late 1950s, when his work suddenly became publicized outside, the Soviet Union even began condemning his work. There was heavy pressure on Demikhov to stop what he was doing. However, he continued. And surprisingly, the success rates kept on increasing. And in 1960, he wrote a monograph named The Experimental Transplantation of Vital Organs, and he coined the word Transplantology. a word we still use today. And so at this time we have a South African cardiologist, Christian Barnard, who had been convinced after reading Demikhov's experiments on the dogs that human heart transplantation was truly possible. So Barnard visited Demikhov's experimental laboratories in Moscow in both 1960 and 1963. He took observations, looked at patterns, interviewed Demikhov himself, and he went back to South Africa, created his own lab, and performed the world's first heart transplant, the first of many life-saving surgeries. Both Brodyaga and Shavka, though, only lived for 4 days. A vein in the neck was accidentally damaged. If it wasn't, they would probably have lived for much longer. Demikhov's longest living two-headed dog lived for 28 days. Now, you're probably thinking right now, this is some of the most craziest things I've heard. This is essentially living Frankenstein. But what's real shame is Demikhov actually transformed what transplantology was and is in the world that we have today. Without him, transplants would have been relatively quite different. And so it's easy to say Demikhov was a crazy, unethical person. Yet his surgeries may have possibly saved hundreds and thousands of lives. So where does this take us now? Well, now it's a human head. So today, Italian neurosurgeon Sergio Canavero believes that head transplants will be a reality in the very, very near future. He is already involved in the first human attempt, which is slated to occur in China, where there are less medical and ethical regulations. Go China. So, who knows? We might have our first proper head transplant, and we know exactly who to thank now. Vladimir Demikhov, a crazy mad Russian scientist who came from Russian peasants and quite essentially changed the world. Now that is simply unknown. Alright, hey guys, if you guys have reached all the way to the end, thank you so much, you're awesome. This was the first video in Simply Unknown, so please go ahead and leave a comment, leave a like, and tell me what you thought about this video format. We have new videos coming up. I'm practically free. So make sure to subscribe, click that fat red subscribe button, and of course, I will see you in the next one. Peace, guys.